everybody and welcome to our Facebook Live event, Our Future Nurses. We're all here today because we're passionate about the future generations of nurses and we'd like to answer all of your questions, so please do send them in. My name's Chloe Price, I'm a third year nursing student, so let's meet our panel.
I'm Julia, I'm a lecturer, but I'm also a registered nurse in both mental health nursing and adult nursing.
My name's Charles and I'm in my last year of the undergraduate BSc here at King's.
My name's Madupe and I'm a nurse and I'm also a teaching fellow at King's.
I'm Rachel, I'm an orthopaedic nurse and I've been qualified for about 3 years.
My name's Louise, I'm a paediatric nurse and an adult trained nurse as well, but I've worked primarily within paediatrics. At the moment I'm working at the Evelina London Children's Hospital as lead nurse and I'm also employed as a paediatric nurse in the Army Reservists.
Hello, my name is Teresa Chin and I'm a registered nurse and I work for We Nurses, which is a social media community of nurses on Twitter.
So our first question has come in and the question is, what does a nurse actually do? Louise, would you like to answer this one?
Yes, so a nurse does, the whole job of a nurse really is to make a difference to our patients. And we don't do that alone, we do that within a team, and that's very important to remember. It's to make, where you can make life better, you make life better. Where you can't, for example at end of life care, you try and make a terrible situation better for the patient, for the family, and in support of your team around you as well.
Teresa, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I think I'd probably add that it's not just kind of the team that you can see, but actually you're talking in terms of a national team and even an international team of nurses all working together for everybody's health and well-being. So, so you need to not just think in terms of locally, but actually nurses make a huge difference globally too.
And Julia?
Yeah, I think I would say that what a nurse does is to partner with a patient, to come alongside and really help them meet their individual needs on a day-by-day basis. So, and that will be through the 24 hours of the day.
Of course. Just to remind everybody, you can send your questions in on Facebook and on Instagram, so please do because we'd love to answer them. Our next question has come in and it's, what inspired you to become a nurse? Rachel?
I think what inspired me the most about becoming a nurse is kind of like the versatility of the job and the fact that you can go into any area and you may not enjoy kind of one area of nursing, but you can absolutely be passionate about another area. And it's kind of not about being a 9 to 5 sat at a desk computer sort of job. You can kind of, you're up every day meeting new people, discovering new kind of skills of your own, and yeah, just everything kind of surrounding being a nurse, communication, everything.
And what about yourself, Mo?
Well, I was at a point in my life where I wanted a career change, and I realized that with nursing I could transfer the skills that I had as a teacher into nursing and still care for people and influence the future of nursing as well.
And at the start of your career, Charles, what inspired you?
Yeah, similarly, initially I trained as a musician, but I cared for my grandfather. He had a nasty gut infection that took me to research at Guy's and St Thomas's, and then I ended up here at King's.
Lovely. That's great. So our next question has come in and it's, how do you become a nurse? I think this is a good time to speak to our lecturers here. Julia?
So I think if you really feel that nursing is for you, then you need to get some work experience before you start a programme of study. So I would always encourage somebody to think a little bit about finding a way of working with other people. So it might be in a nursing home, a care home, or it might be in a charity. To get a sense of, is that really what gives you the buzz? You know, working alongside with other people who perhaps need some guidance or somebody to talk to. I think that work experience really sets the platform for thinking, actually, this really is for me. And then, of course, it brings you to your academic studies, and there are certain qualifications that you need to think about in terms of achieving those before you come to the university. So the the study that you do, the programs that you do, actually contribute to giving you that sort of springboard for starting your nursing degree.
Sure. Mo?
I agree with you, Julia, because when I came into nursing as well, I started out being a healthcare support worker. So the experience stood me in good stead. to be able to say, actually, this is what I want to do. And then I went to find out what I needed academically to be able to do that. So, and people coming from different walks of life. We have people who've got a first degree already doing a PG dip in nursing. So there are different routes of entry. It's just finding out what you want to do, if it's for you, and how you can get onto it.
Of course. Maybe we can speak to Louise about how you did become a nurse.
So in terms of my career pathway, is that what you mean? Yes. So I became a nurse actually I'm not a degree trained nurse. This was before the degree training was introduced. So my own experience was very clinical. The clinical placements were the priority of the time. And I think from listening to a lot of our nursing students now, the clinical placements are really valuable, obviously, in helping them understand whether it is an environment, whether they want to continue to be a nurse, or the sort of environment that's going to float their boat, or that they feel as though they'll be able to contribute the most. So my training, whilst it's been very different, has been a really good one, but I think the academic strengths now of the course are really amazing in taking us into the future.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. So we've had a comment come from Rebecca. Thank you for watching. Do you have any recommendations for personal statements? Let's speak to Mo.
Personal statements, I think it does what it says on the tin. It's your personal statement. It's about you, what you're bringing to nursing, what you already have, because most skills are transferable. So you want to write about yourself, you want to write about your experience, and also your skills and your objectives as well will all come into your personal statement. So it will give the person who's reading it a flair or a taste of who's coming before them, so that they know that you're interested. So I would write about me and my experience and my skills.
And what would you say, Charles?
I think the only thing I would add to that is any extracurricular activities you can usually pull out and kind of sell as okay, this is something I really enjoy. And I know many people that have continued on the netball team here or musical activities. Yeah.
Excellent. And Teresa, do you have anything to comment?
It's been a while, I have to admit, since I would have written any sort of personal statement. I've been nursing for over 20 years now, so quite a significant amount of time. However, I think I would kind of just say, you know, let your passion shine through. Not everybody can be a nurse. Let's face it, it isn't for everybody. Only the kind of really passionate, the very best people can be nurses. So if that's something you aspire to be, then make sure that really does come through.
Hello everybody and welcome back to our Future Nursing event. Just to remind you, you can submit your questions on Facebook and on Instagram. We'll just quickly go over our panel and they'll introduce themselves.
So I'm Julia, I'm a lecturer and also a registered nurse in adult and mental health nursing.
I'm Charles, I'm a nursing student here at King's in my last year.
I'm Mo. I'm a senior teaching fellow at King's. I'm also a mental health nurse with a background in substance misuse.
I'm Chloe, I'm a third year children's nursing student.
I'm Rachel, I'm an adult nurse and I work predominantly in orthopaedics.
I'm Louise, I'm a paediatric nurse and I'm currently lead nurse on the intensive care unit here in London, and I'm also a paediatric nurse in the Army Reserves.
Hello, my name is Teresa Chin and I'm a registered nurse and I work in social media.
Excellent, that's great. So we've had another question come from Alice. Thank you for watching. It's how do you get into the nursing in the Army? So it seems obvious to come to you, Louise.
So the way I did it, I went and joined the Army only last year, and I joined as an already practicing nurse. I called into my local field hospital, which you can Google and see where the field hospitals are, and I badgered them to give me the information I needed to join. Actually, there's a lot of information online about how you approach the Army or the other forces to become a nurse. You can enter, you can do your training in entirety through the Army, you can receive bursaries, and all the information that you need is online, and that's probably the best, most up-to-date information, rather than me talking too deeply about how you approach it. But you can go in as a student or you can go in fully qualified. So it depends what avenue you're taking.
Excellent, thank you. So our next question is, what's your favourite thing about your job? Rachel?
I think my favourite thing is genuinely like seeing people kind of after you've helped them, once they're kind of better, and just seeing how thankful patients can be kind of like for your help, and just you can go home at night and genuinely think I've kind of done something for someone today, and just that feeling of kind of fullness and just like you just feel so rewarded. I think as a job as a nurse, I think it's just such a lovely feeling every day being able to go home, and some days are hard, yes, but then some days, kind of the really good days, make it all sort of worth it.
Excellent. Teresa?
I think it's people. People are just amazing, and it doesn't matter where you nurse, it doesn't matter where you apply those skills. Nursing is so incredibly diverse, but the thing that kind of unites everything is people, and it's that engaging with people, it's that helping people, it's making a difference, even if it's in a very small way. Just making a difference to people's lives is just the most wonderful feeling, really.
Excellent, thank you. So we've had another live question come in from Olivia. Thank you. How do you balance working as a nurse and a social life? Rachel, if you don't mind telling us.
I think there's such a kind of stigma around nurses that you don't get a social life. Like everyone kind of thinks nurses are these people that work all day, all night, and then never be able to go out. But I think genuinely, like, you work long days, yes, but it also means you get days off in the week, and you do like a 12-hour shift, and then the next day you have off. So it is such a balance, and you do have to kind of, you can't burn the candle at both ends, obviously, but you can kind of, you do your days at work, and you kind of reserve time for yourself, and it's so important to do that, because if you kind of put your whole life into work, you're going to burn out, and you just need to be able to have that time for yourself to kind of, you know, reserve those days to go to that party. Do you know what I mean? You have to.
Definitely. Charles, what about you?
So I still care for family members as well as sort of studying. So that takes up some time, but I still manage to have some sort of a social life, and I balance a range of sort of extracurricular activities as well.
Lovely, thank you. So our next question is going to be, what other career prospects will I have as a nurse, apart from working on a ward or in an NHS hospital? Teresa, do you fancy?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, it's so diverse, nursing. So when 20 years ago, there is absolutely no way that I would have imagined that I am where I am today. Social media wasn't really heard of. In fact, mobile phones, nobody even had a mobile phone back then. So things have moved on, and nursing certainly moved on. And as a nurse who works in social media, using social media, encouraging other nurses to use social media, and encouraging sharing and networking and professional development, it's just amazing, really. So, you know, nursing can actually take you anywhere you want it to take you. So you start with your nursing degree, and that gives you a really strong foundation for you to be able to take it anywhere. And I think it was Walt Disney that said, if you can dream it, you can do it. And that's the way that I feel about nursing, is actually if we can dream it, then we can go and do it.
Absolutely, thank you. I'd love to hear from Julia as well.
I think it's really important to realise that nurses don't just work in acute hospitals. There's a real push for nursing to be, or for healthcare to be managed in the primary care setting. So nurses can work in the community as well as in an acute hospital. But equally, there are so many specialties that nurses can get involved in. So you might want to be a school nurse, or you might want to work as a practice nurse with a GP, or you might decide that you really want to work in occupational health, where you look at the health of the workers in a business, in a larger organisation. And of course, you can travel the world. And there is something very, very special about a UK nurse, and there's something very, very special about a King's nurse. And I think, as you've seen on some of the media that we've seen this morning, actually you really can travel the world and take a King's degree wherever you like.
Thank you, that's great. Charles, do you have any idea where your career would like to take you?
I have an ongoing interest in sexual health. So So I think we were talking a little bit earlier today about where that could go, but either potentially sort of down a research route or in clinical practice. Maybe a fusion of the two.
Sounds great. Lovely. So we've got another live question coming from Amy. Thank you. Why study at King's and not somewhere else in the UK? Charles?
I decided to study at King's because, honestly, it seemed like the best place to study nursing. I wanted to stay in London, and I think many other people have come from around the UK because they want to be in London, either for their studies or also for job prospects afterwards, working in and staying in London. So that's great, but the sort of pioneering nursing faculty leads research and in clinical practice. So you end up sort of being taught the latest evidence and then implementing that, sometimes without really knowing that you're being taught, okay, this has literally come out last week.
Excellent. And Julia?
I think that if you really want to be the best you want to be, then come to a university that's going to give you that aspiration and that expectation to really step up and step forward. And I think there's something particularly unique about the King's brand of university in that we have a lifestyle within the university, but we're nestled within London, and it gives you access to all sorts of resources that perhaps you wouldn't have if you were studying at another university somewhere else in the UK. So, yeah.
Thank you. So our next question is, how did you decide what to specialise in? Mo?
Interesting. Well, I initially thought I wanted to specialise in psychiatric intensive care. So my background's in mental health. And when I did my last placement, it was in substance misuse. And I got there and I thought, wow, this is what I want to do, because I'm not making anybody do anything that they don't want to do. So you do motivational interviewing, you get the client involved, you get their families involved. And with all of you on board, you're able to come to a decision and help someone change a lifetime of substance misuse or alcohol misuse. And I thought, this is what I want to do. And that helped me make that decision. So I didn't know for sure what I wanted to do until I got to my final placement.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. Louise?
So I fell into the specialism of paediatric intensive care, actually. I worked on a paediatric ward and had a short time off, and when I went back to work, I was told there wasn't a job anymore for me there and I had to go to the intensive care. And I was quite miffed by that, quite cross and quite angry. And actually I've stayed in it for 25 years. So my message is really, you know, take your opportunities, try and see the good in them, because you won't always get exactly what you want, and you don't in life, do you? But go with it and see the best in it. So that's how I ended up there.
Thank you. And Rachel, would you like to?
Yeah, I think I'd just add, as a student nurse, it's such an opportunity to kind of look into the specialities that you enjoy, because you'll find that you enjoy some in your placements and you will really, really not enjoy others. And I think when I was a student nurse, I found a theatre placement. I had a really, really amazing mentor, and he just kind of put that passion in me to kind of go into theatre nursing. It was just so interesting, and he really kind of involved me as a student, and that can really shape your career. And I think just as a student, use that kind of, you know, that time to figure out what you like, because it's such a good opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you. Our next question's come in live from Rosie on Facebook. Thank you. What hospitals do graduates go on to work at? Mo?
Well, you could go to any hospital, really. So for me, I fell within a mental health foundation trust, and that's where I started out. So I could do inpatient hospitals or community hospitals. So actually, it is limitless.
Of course. And Julia?
I'm just trying to remember where my final year students went at the end of last year, and I think that there was a really strong presentation of people going to the London hospitals. I think, you know, because once people have spent 3 years here, they've actually made their lives here. And then there was the proportion of students who actually had come to study, had made the really best of the programme, and then travelled home, travelled back to where they had either family commitments or new commitments for the future. So you can go anywhere that you choose to go to, and you will find a King's graduate almost anywhere.
So we have a question that's coming from Faith. How can a nursing degree help me with substance misuse? Help me work with substance misuse? Mo.
Okay. Well, it can help you in various ways, but because I might not have enough time to tell you how many ways or the diverse ways it can help you, I'd really suggest a document that's come from Public Health England and the Royal College of Nursing, and it really speaks about the role of a nurse in addictions in addictions nursing. So that's something that would be really helpful. But basically, as a nurse in substance misuse, you're working with people who've got a condition that doesn't come tidily. So it's against the backdrop of social, physical, and psychological issues. So you as the nurse, you would probably be helping them with their physical health issues as well as their mental health needs, and also supporting them with their family, what they need, where they need to take this in terms of psychology or maybe rehab. So there really is so much that the nurse can do, even prescribing, non-medical prescribing of their substitute medication. So there is just so much that as a nurse can do. But look into that document.
Thank you. So our next question is, what do you study during a nursing degree? Charles?
Yeah, sure. I'm studying for an exam in December in research methods, which I think some people may be relieved to know is the only sort of heavy research-based module on the course. Otherwise, I found the program is really looking towards what you see in clinical practice, how to improve that practice, and then there's a lot of reading, which you've got to do in your own time.
And Teresa, what do you think people should study during a nursing degree?
Well, I mean, clearly, the key message that's coming across today is that nursing is hugely diverse, and I think it's very difficult to kind of touch on every aspect of nursing during a nursing degree. Interestingly, I think the research element is extremely important moving forward, and that's something evidence and research certainly underpins all of nursing, and I feel that that gives you a strong foundation to kind of move forward. Other kind of really important bits from my perspective, working in social media are things like digital professionalism, how we can use nursing, how we can use social media to enhance nursing, and how we can act professionally within digital spaces. But there's lots more.
Absolutely. Thank you. The next question we're going to answer today is, will I get a job when I finish my course? Rachel?
Yeah, so when I finished my nursing course, so I graduated about 3 years ago, but I was in Brighton, and I decided to move up to London to be a nurse. And you have to apply and you have to look around for hospitals, but most people, I mean, yes, you do get jobs, there are so many jobs out there. You just have to kind of figure out what's best for you and what you want to go into, but yeah, you will get a job, like most people do, it's one of those things. But yeah, I mean, yeah, just go for it. You just have to be kind of find a hospital that you think will suit you and just go for it, apply.
Excellent, thank you. And Louise, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would say, much like a personal statement, when you're trying to stand out from the crowd to get a position and to get a place at university, start creating your own opportunities right from the beginning of your nursing training. Put yourself out there for the right reasons, and then you've got something to add to your CV. You will get a job, but you'll get a job that's more suited to you, or you'll have more choice on opportunities if you've started that from the start.
And Teresa, do you have anything to add?
I suppose just really just building on the kind of putting yourself out there message in that there are there are lots of nursing jobs out there. We are short of nurses. We do want more people to come into the profession. But in order for you to get the role that you really want and that you're really passionate about in that area of nursing that you really, really want to work in, you need to start thinking about that right from the word go, and you need to kind of start putting yourself out there, using all of your networks, all of your connections, actually saying, this is me and this is what I'm interested in.
Excellent, thank you. So our next question is coming from Carly on Facebook. Thank you. How soon in my course can I specialise? Julia.
I think this goes back to where you find your passion in terms of the clinical placements that you go to as a student nurse. And I think you'll find there are areas that you really feel that you fit in, and there are areas that you think, oh, maybe I'm not a medical nurse. Maybe surgery is the right sort of environment for me. And I think that once you know the sort of area that you want to go into, by the very nature of the hospitals that you're going to be working in, you're very likely to find yourself starting to shape your career right from the point of registration. And so you become almost a specialist really quite early on. You might be working on an acute ward, you might not be, but you start to build your pathway through your career. So in fact, you specialise quite quickly, and perhaps much more quickly than you think you're going to.
Yeah. Thank you. Charles, speaking in terms of you being at university, did your peers know what they want to specialise in at the start? Do they know now? And what has changed to make that decision?
Okay, I think some people come into it knowing exactly what they want to do, but I think that can change. The elective is a great way of sort of specialising in something that you're keenly interested in, so sexual health and research. For me, I went out to Switzerland in April earlier this year and spent about 4 to 6 weeks out there doing research into pregnant women with gonorrhea infections. So, wow. Yeah. So you can specialise while you're studying, I think, to build on what everyone has said during your course.
Excellent, thank you. And Louise, do you have anything?
I think it's, again, keeping an open mind, and you develop over the course of your training, you develop a list of criteria of what you want to get from the role and what you think you're going to be best to contribute to the role. So it's, unless you know very clearly what you think, or you think you know what you want to do, then keep fairly open-minded and listen to every bit of advice that's given to you along the way. Yeah, that's my advice.
Excellent, thank you. So our next questions come from Amy on Facebook. Thank you. What facilities does King's have? Mo.
Well, there is the Nightingale Students' Council, so you could be part of the council and contribute, so you can actually lead change from bottom up. And for me, really, there are so many societies you could join and be able to contribute things that really tick your own box. So apart from the academic aspects, that there are social things that you could do and things that you enjoy, you just have to look for them. But,
and Charles, as a current student, can you add anything?
Yeah, we've got the Skills Centre at King's, which is a sort of purpose-built training environment. So there are electronic dummies and simulated sessions that get run with staff, lecturers, clinical staff to help guide you through, say, what happens if a patient is acutely vomiting blood in A&E and how can we help with that.
And Judith?
I think that the facilities that you have here is about joining a community. So it's, as Mo was saying, it's not just about the academic work and the clinical practice environment, it's actually joining a community where you get really good support and guidance and also challenge. You know, what about doing things differently? We've spoken a lot about keeping an open mind, and I would really reinforce that. Keep an open mind and challenge yourself to see if there are things that you can do that you never thought you were going to do at all. So.
Excellent, thank you. And our next question, can nursing take you into a career abroad? Louise?
So certainly yes, across the board and all the specialisms of nursing. With my army role, the opportunities are there as well. If you're a nurse in the regular army, then you're expected obviously to go to different countries and work in different environments. As a reservist, that is a potential too. So far I've been on exercise and worked in Poland in a field hospital with the American and Polish armies, doing mass casualty simulations, working through all sorts of scenarios to make sure you get slicker and slicker with the care that you give in real life to soldiers and civilians and army dogs and all sorts. So that is something I'm very much hoping to do a lot more of in the future, and I can contribute what I know about nursing into that team, and I can learn from that the team I'm working with, and we all improve and get better.
Thank you. And Teresa?
Yes, 100% yes. You can take nursing wherever you want to take it. So I'm just about to go and present in Vienna at the end of the month around social media and nursing. I've presented in Berlin, I've been to Seville, I've been all over the UK. I talk constantly with people online from Australia, America, Africa, Germany, all over. So actually you can take it anywhere. The world's your oyster.
Hello everybody, and welcome back to our Facebook Live event, Our Future Nurses. Please do continue to send your questions on Facebook and on Instagram. We'll move to our first question from Jeanette. How does army nursing differ? Is the training difficult? So we'll go to you, Louise.
So honestly and truthfully, because I didn't train in the army, I couldn't honestly give a robust response to that. As I mentioned earlier, you can do your training and then move into the army, so you can do it in the civilian world. You can be posted to defence hospitals, and you do get a wide experience of caring for civilians. Does it vary? I don't know. Sorry.
No. So appreciate your honesty.
Again, if you approach your local field hospital and look online at the information, they'll be able to give you all the information that you need around that.
Excellent, thank you. So we'll move on to our next question. I'm worried about the pressures or the stresses of the job. How do you deal with it? Rachel?
I think you just have to be so resilient as a nurse, and you do it comes with experience. And I found that on my placements as a student, certain little things would really get to you, and it wouldn't be something that was such a huge kind of tragedy as seeing someone sort of die or something like that, but certain little things can sometimes get to you and you'd feel the stress, but you kind of build with it, and as you become a nurse you learn about dealing with your emotions kind of in a different way, and you just have to talk to people, and as long as you've got a strong group of like family and friends around you, just be sure to just talk about it. And I think it does make such a difference when it kind of like relieves the stress a bit. You just go and sit down with your mum or dad, have a cup of tea and just talk about your day, and I think that can really just take the pressure off, and you just need to come home and just put the day of work behind you and kind of just try and deal with it in different ways.
Louise?
I think you're completely right there. I think you have to build what is right for you and the support that you need. But what's really important, because in all our nursing jobs now, whatever sort of nursing we do, we all work at such speed, don't we? And it's important to seek support from others, because you won't always be spotted if you're struggling. Quite often you are, because we all try and protect each other, but speak up if you need any help in any way. Early on, don't bottle it up, because it's much worse then, isn't it? And that's whether you're a student nurse or whether you're a qualified nurse, that's career long.
Excellent. So our next question is, what's the favourite part of your job? And we're going to go to Teresa.
Favourite part of my job? Wow, there's so many, to be honest with you. Doing things like this, I think. So actually, coming out to places, meeting new people, and talking about nursing, because let's face it, nursing's my favourite subject. So, and if we could add social media into that, then that would be amazing. It's kind of getting out there, doing things like this. Talking about nursing, inspiring other people to actually even think about nursing as a career. It's such a great honour and a great privilege to be able to do that. So I would say that this is probably a big high.
Excellent, thank you. And Charles?
What's my favourite thing about nursing?
Being a student?
I think being a nursing student is probably more appropriate, because I haven't actually worked as a nurse yet. I think, on top of actually sort of building on what everyone has said about making a difference to individuals, their families and carers, I think the flexibility within the clinical program means that I could just get to see a huge range of what goes on within the profession, and that really, really is enormous.
Thank you. And Rachel?
I think, yeah, just coming home and just feeling like you have made a difference for someone. And I saw a quote once, it was something like, they might forget your name, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And I think that's so true. You kind of hear stories about, you know, patients, and they talk about their other nurses at other hospitals and how, just little things. And I think it's just so lovely to be able to do that for someone. And yeah, I don't know, it's just I think it's just a great feeling as a person to be able to help another, and hearing about other people's stories. Like, you'll meet a 100-year-old person and they'll tell you all these things, and it's just such an enjoyable part of the job.
Excellent, thank you. So our next question is coming from Facebook Live, from Rumu, thank you. Can I do a nursing degree without work experience or shadowing? Julia, you spoke about this earlier, so it might be
Yes, I mean, of course you can do nursing without having done work experience. It's just about that work experience having given you the confidence that this really was right for you. And I think that sometimes you might think, oh yes, of course I can get on with other people because I do that all the time. There's something very special about working alongside a patient who is really vulnerable and really unwell. It can be scary. It can really make you feel out of your depth. And that's why I would say some sort of insight into that world of nursing work can be really, really helpful right at the very beginning. But we do have people who come onto the programs who haven't got that work experience and who get that clinical experience and that clinical confidence really very quickly, and obviously go on to be very successful nurses. So it's just about what really is going to fit for you. And if you have any doubts, I would say go and get some work experience.
And following on from that, Mo, when you felt out of your depths, what have you done to get out of it?
Well, supervision, because like my colleagues have said earlier, it's always good to talk about your struggles and what the challenges are, because what builds a resilient nurse is that bucket of experience that you've got, and also knowing that I'm not alone in this. Someone else has walked that path before me, and they might be able to support me. So speaking to your mentors, speaking to your practice assessor, or even your personal tutor, talking about what the challenges are, and they can help you through that difficult time. So that's always helped me when I was a student, and it helped me when I was in practice. And I'm still using it now.
Yeah, definitely. Use the people who are around you.
Around you, yeah, your mentors. Yeah.
Absolutely. So this is a question we're going to ask everybody. So we'll start over here. What's the biggest challenge you faced as a nurse?
I think for me, when I was in clinical practice, it was about realising that I actually couldn't save somebody's life. And the challenge was to sit alongside and help them die well. And that still resonates for me now. And I can remember doing that on many occasions, but knowing that I really had to get it right, because it was a privilege to be there and to be with them and their families.
I think when times get hard on a clinical placement that you really don't either enjoy for whatever reason or feel comfortable with doing, it's knowing that there is a personal tutor that can support you, or a link lecturer in the hospital, or even your mentor that you're working with, and say, actually, can I just have a moment with you to chat about this, because I can't really deal with this. And that's always been really supportive and sort of got me through.
Thank you.
Okay, for me, it's managing expectations. So what the patient or the client expects of me, and what I expect of myself. And I always think back to when I first came into substance misuse, and there weren't that many black nurses in substance misuse. And one of my patients actually said to me, I don't think you should be a substance misuse. I think you should go and be a foster parent. And I'm thinking, children, me? Not really, I'd like this. So that was a challenge, because what I wanted was different from what the patient wanted. So sometimes you're faced with that in your career, and you have to make difficult decisions. So that's been my greatest challenge. Can't forget it.
And we'll move on to Rachel, and just to remind you, the question is, what's been your biggest challenge in nursing?
I think my biggest challenge was probably when I went into my first ever job as a registered nurse, and kind of your first day as a nurse, you've got all this responsibility. So you go from being a student to a registered nurse, everything is kind of on your shoulders. And it's just the scariest, kind of most daunting thing. I just remember that day, and I just think it's learning everything. You kind of bombard yourself with more knowledge, and it's so different going from that student to registered nurse. And I think that was such a challenge for me, sort of learning of the responsibility that you've now got. So if you do make a mistake, it's kind of, yes, this is me. But yeah, obviously that comes with experience and you learn, but that was very challenging, kind of going from student to registered nurse for me. It was just that sort of change you have to, yeah.
Excellent, thank you. And Louise?
So I think one of the challenges that I think is ongoing all the time is when you make those little mistakes and you're trying to learn from those and you're trying not to beat yourself up about them, because we are all human and we're not robots and we shouldn't be robots, and it's supporting other people through their mistakes as well, but more importantly is getting up, dragging yourself out of the hole and getting on with it and improving yourself all the time.
I would say my biggest challenge has been changing mindsets. So when I first started working as a nurse using social media, it wasn't really heard of, and you kind of take those first tentative steps, and there are a lot of people who say to you, "You can't do this. This is, you can't work this way. You can't do it." Yet here we are, kind of 6 years later, and social media is mentioned in the Nursing and Midwifery Code of Conduct. A lot of universities and nursing employers are actually thinking in terms of a proactive approach to social media rather than a restrictive one, and people, when I go to conferences, when I speak at conferences, I used to ask, my first question would be, how many people in this room use social media on a professional basis? And I used to get 1 or 2 people hold their hands up, and these days it's more like 90 or 80% of the room do. So my biggest challenge, I suppose, is just to kind of being able to change those mindsets, but actually to keep going, because 6 years is a long time to keep banging that same drum.
Excellent, thank you. So our next question is, do nurses have to bring work home with them a lot? From Jeanette on Facebook Live. Rachel?
I think you don't get kind of things to bring home, like kind of papers or things like that. You don't, nothing like that. But bringing kind of emotions home with you, and if you've had a bad day, if something's gone wrong, if you've made a mistake, things like that can really sit in your head all day, all night, and you'll think about it. But it is just learning to let go of that, and it's so important, because I've had days when I've come home from work, I've cried. I mean, I think everyone probably has, but it's just one of those things where it is such an emotional job. You're kind of so emotionally invested in your patients, and we've all got such empathy as nurses. I think it's really hard not to sometimes bring work home with you, but you just have to, like we said earlier, kind of learn to let go a little bit, and try not to sometimes.
And Louise?
So I'm in a management role now, and there is a certain amount of work that goes home with me, but I think it's very important that all nurses in whatever role gets a good work-life balance, and that will be different for each individual person as to what's acceptable and what isn't. But if we don't protect our health and our private life time, then we won't be be able to be good nurses and look after people properly, or look after whatever role you're doing properly.
Hello everybody, and welcome back for our last little section of our Facebook Live event, Our Future Nurses. If any of your questions haven't been answered, they will stay up on the page for the next few days, and we will try and answer them for you. We're just going to talk about our best and our worst experiences of nursing. Julia, would you like to start?
I think for me as a lecturer in the university, the best for me is seeing students build their confidence, start doing their problem solving for themselves, and feel passionate about nursing and to be successful. So that's what ticks my boxes all of the time.
I can completely understand that. As a student, the amount of times I've gone to my personal tutor help, and it must be so rewarding to see that I came in as this small 19-year-old girl and I'm leaving this woman. It sounds quite cliche, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's quite a transformation.
It is, yeah, and I think that's the word that actually is probably the most important one. People transform themselves during their studies at King's, and it's wonderful to see. I feel privileged to be part of their lives.
Yeah. It is lovely. Charles?
About halfway through my studies, I was approached in the hospital by a PDN and asked if I wanted to take part in a global campaign with WHO called Nursing Now. So sort of off the back of that, they put me forward to sit on a round table with the Duchess of Cambridge and talk about sort of what my studies have been like and the future of nursing. So that was a real highlight.
Wow, that sounds cool. So cool. If you just wouldn't mind telling everybody what a PDN is.
Yeah, practice development nurse.
Thank you. So the kind of role that kind of nurse would do, if you know.
A PDN, I think it's more a focus on developing the nurses in clinical practice and supporting them to do that in any way that they can.
So yeah, I think that just
so
shows.
offering training.
Yeah, even when you've left university, you're a nurse, and like Rachel said already, it's the scariest going from being protected as being by a student to being newly qualified.
So true.
But you still have people, PDNs, practice development nurses, that are still there to kind of like
guide you,
and
And I think it is one of the things about nursing which I love is the fact that you learn something every day. Like you genuinely, the learning never stops. Like you can sort of be on the ward. Obviously, I'm still quite relatively new to nursing, the grand scheme of things, but every single day I learn something. Whether it's about drugs, about different things about patients, every day you're kind of building on your knowledge, and the kind of you can work your way up. There's all different hierarchies of nurses, and you can work your way up, and it never you can go into management if you want. So I think it's great. You never stop learning, which is really good.
Exactly. And there's just opportunities that I think you would have never thought you'd be taking.
Yeah.
And we spoke about how do you know which speciality you want to go into. Because I came into this profession, I thought, I want to be a renal nurse, I know this. And I've just done a community placement and absolutely loved it. Yeah. Realised that people should be in their homes, and this is where we should look after people.
I think it's okay not to know at the start of your journey where you want to go and what you want to do, and there's a certain kind of serendipity to it, because nursing. There's so many nursing opportunities out there, and sometimes things just kind of fall into your lap. And you spoke a little bit earlier about just making the most of opportunities, and there are so many opportunities in nursing that you can just grab hold of, which is just wonderful.
In many ways, you can have a portfolio career as a nurse. You can move around the specialities. You don't have to stay in one place and stay there permanently. You build the skills. You might be working in a hospital, you might then decide to go into the community. What great transferable skills to take from the acute setting actually into the primary care setting. Fabulous. So portfolio careers for nurses sound good to me.
Mo, could you tell us a little bit about your favourite part of your nursing career so far?
My favourite part, which I'm trying not to make it sound like Julia and I were talking about earlier on, not to make it sound selfish, but I actually get an opportunity to contribute to the nurses who will look after me when I need care. So because I think, what would it be like to be on the receiving end of me? Would I like what I get? And I get opportunity to contribute to the future of nursing, and that for me is a everyday winner, really, that opportunity.
Louise, you must have loads to speak about. Love to hear from you.
Listening to everybody and building on that, really, and building on something you said, Rachel, is the impact, the realisation over time, the impact that you can have, and things, the way that you care for your patient, the way that you support your colleague or your peer or whatever, the impact of something you might say or something you might do is huge in the future. And when those colleagues come back to you, or those patients come back to you in 10 years and say, I remember you did this for me that day 10 years ago when I felt at my lowest, you think, wow, I can't even remember that, but that's brilliant. And that sort of, it takes a long time to get to that point, but we shouldn't underestimate as students and junior nurses the impact of what you're doing that's going to stay with people, whether you think it's going to or not. It is going to, isn't it? And that's so exciting.
Yeah, there's almost a ripple effect, isn't there? So you might kind of have an impact somewhere over here, and it just creates these amazing ripples that have such far-reaching impact.
Without even thinking.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you so much for everyone, for your opinions and your thoughts. I feel very inspired to be the best nurse that I can be, and I hope that we've inspired you as well, and you'll take up this profession because it is incredible. Thank you so much for watching.